I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Did everybody have a chance to read the minutes from last week?
I didn't see anything, Mr. Chairman.
I moved to accept the minutes as presented.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passed 3-0. Okay. Any commissioner reports?
I have none.
I have
Do you-
none.
I don't either. Kim, are you ready, or?
So Cotumico, what they will do, I sign that invoice for the 145. Now issue a PO, they will send it off for shipment wait until December. The phone equipment will be shipped in December, they will invoice us in January. I'll have 30 plus days to pay the 145,226. And I'll just have to pay AT&T roughly about $7,000 instead of the 12.
Okay, so they just prorated it out.
Yeah.
Do we have a contract with them? With AT&T?
No.
Do we have that in writing from them on the price?
No, that was just what I'm assuming. I've just
Oh.
contact them. It's $12,000 for a year, so I'm assuming that's $1,000 per month. So from the time the old contract ended, that date to the next date until we get the new phone system in January, would be $1,000.
I would get with them, and it may be the fact if we go over 1 month, we gotta pay for the whole year. So we could surely get by 1 month without their support, couldn't we?
Oh, sure.
So we'd wanna go that route versus paying for a whole year.
Right. And I
Just
did
do
get in
away with it
contact with
first year.
my AT&T rep, and he was supposed to get back with me because I did ask him to verify we don't have a contract for the 12,000. And he said, no, as far as he knew, there wasn't a contract. And I said, well, I know, I never signed anything. So, but he hasn't got that. They take forever.
Did you get anything from Jamie about the
Okay,
sales tax, or?
that's what, I gave them to you by email, the little paper clip.
So, oh, underneath the blue folder. I looked in the blue folder. Okay.
That's the stuff that she sent to Becky upon Becky's request 2 weeks ago. And, the amount that's is there have not been updated since the first part of August.
Okay.
So as far as what's available there. But that's what was sent to Becky, and there's the joint communication one and the solid waste. This has been at
So
least
that-
2 payrolls.
Am I reading these terms correctly? 80% of equipment on receipt? 80% of the payment terms?
80% of the.
Well, it says here, 80% of the equipment on receipt of the equipment from K.S.A.
Yes, they won't send it in to have the equipment ordered until December. Takes about 4 weeks to get the shipment. So the phone system won't be here until the end of December. Then they will bill us as soon as they get the shipment, which will be due in January for the 145,226.
Well, that's not what these terms say.
I think we're just looking at this as in a gray box right here.
Right.
The way I read it, we gotta come up with 80% of it just as soon as we make this order.
So do you want me to have them change that? Because that's not what we said, what they said. To put no shipment until December. Then once we receive the shipment in December, they will bill us and it will be due in January.
In 30 days? And it doesn't say anything close to that.
Yeah, I think we'd have to have something in writing to.
Are we through Mark?
Hmm?
Are we purchasing this through Mark?
We're purchasing it through Kamiko.
It says Mark payment terms. Is that a
Maybe that's
specialty?
who, maybe that's who Mark, or Kamiko goes through. It's actually, the phone equipment is purchased through Airbus.
I mean, I would be satisfied with the terms that you stated, as long as we kind of have it in writing, and so there's no surprises at the end of the day.
Okay, so if I have them change them, then do I need to come back again to a meeting, or you just want me to email it to you, or go back? Yeah, because it'd have to be approved.
Yeah.
I would get something from AT&T as well.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
You wouldn't see any of
I can
these.
try.
If not,
I don't, what
I'd
what
vote to-
exactly do I need from AT&T?
just that if it runs over into the next year, we're not obligated to that whole year of payment.
Well, see, the payment's gonna be due in October. The $12,000 invoice comes in October to pay for that year, from July of 17 to July of 18.
Oh,
Well, what I'm afraid of is if we go a day beyond that into the new contract, they're going to say you owe that 12,000, even though you're
she's
only.
saying that we're gonna owe that here anyway.
Well,
But will they prorate it?
we could certainly opt out of something if we have. I mean, we don't have any contract that we're just obligated forever to keep paying. So
Right, but if that first payment is due as 12,000, what are they going to do if we send them 1,000 for 1 month? Is that going to void the contract? I mean, to me, it's like,
There is no contract.
yeah,
well,
that's
but, or
something we find
void
out.
the implied contract.
Right, okay.
Well, we need to get that verified.
Well, that's what I'm
If there is or is not a contract.
Because sometimes, you go a day into that new contract and it's like, well, it's implied that, well, there hasn't been anything else changed, that you're on for a year.
Okay, then what's your opinion is, do we pay the 12,000 or we go from October to January without any backup?
I can't go October to January without any, because we're having issues with the phone system we have now. We just had to call AT&T out Friday. So,
I would make, well, see, that'd be, you say it's due October 1st?
it's due, the bill will come in October, but it's for I think it was July 18th of 17 through July 18th of 2018.
So we're already into the new year.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's how they bill, because I asked them last year about it. If it starts in July, why are we getting billed in October? Well, that's just the way we do it.
July, August, September, October, November, December. So basically, we would be owing $6,000 for half a year.
I would say 7, because if they order the equipment in December, they'll start putting it in January, but it probably wouldn't be in or completed until maybe the end of January. So unless they could give me better dates of when exactly the install will be, then I could go by the date that's on the AT&T bill. So that would of the installation. Exactly.
Well, I think there's, two different issues. One's with AT&T, one's with the Kamenko. I think we need to have something verified through AT&T to make sure that we're not going to owe them the whole 12. I mean,
Right. I'll see what I can find out
okay.
from my rep. So.
You might know this is very frustrating.
Oh.
I mean,
yeah,
dealing with
it's-
AT&T, but I'm reluctant to do something that don't have a in writing. He said, she said that it worked out
Right.
very well.
I agree. I just know that our AT&T is like impossible.
Oh.
But I will try, and I did know that my rep did tell me he didn't believe there was any contract, and I know I didn't sign a contract. So, I just need to find out how much I would owe.
Or if they would just agree, it's basically a month to month,
Right,
and if it's 12,000 for 12 months, it's 1,000 a month, and
right.
I wouldn't try to cut it off at if it's a full month, or, I would just cut it off at a full
So is
month.
it January 31st, we'd owe him $7,000.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, we'd have to pay that ahead of time.
Sure,
We'd have to
sure.
pay that in October. That's where I was figuring. January 30, well, no, it'd be earlier than that, like the 18th or something like that.
Or whatever that cutoff date is.
Whatever that cutoff date was. But I figured I would have to get with Kamenko to see exactly when their installation date was, because they know the issue that we were having with the AT&T and paying that.
Mhm.
And so they were gonna try to get the install as close to the first part of January as they could,
I would,
so.
if you actually got to somebody that could commit to anything through AT&T, I would probably ask them if something happened and the equipment didn't come in and we needed to extend that another month, if there was a problem with going to,
Right,
so it would basically be putting it to a month to month. We would give them the first 6 months up front, like we have the 12, but then from then on it would be a month to month.
okay,
And then that way we would have an option if something failed to get in, or the Kamenko can't come when we need them to, and
right.
puts us off. We hate to be stranded basically without any service.
Oh, yeah.
Well, if it's set up on that schedule, and let's say Kamenko can't get in there for a month or two, we're $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, so the other $3,000 ain't gonna kill us. Push come to shove.
But the main one was the first payment. I mean, they kind of.
Well, you're gonna have to owe that anyway. But then if you go $1,000 a month and the Kamenko can't get in until say the 1st of February,
Right.
or if they say no, you got to pay the whole 12 months. Well, we're not going to be
Cost us about $4,000 or $5,000.
at the most. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, this quote was originally April 29th of 2016. So
She
it's been-
said I asked her about the dates, and she said that is still valid. But if the commissioners wanted the dates changed, she would change it. But she said that quote's still valid.
So the quote was over a year old.
Yeah, well, we started it last year,
Okay.
and then it was turned down because we didn't have any money.
I definitely want the date changed.
Okay.
Now, whoever signs this, which is probably Eric, you want to make sure all the terms and
Okay.
everything are correct.
Yeah, I think we need to have the date changed, and we have to get those terms where it says, and whether it's on this form or we need to have, even if it's a separate form with the terms, new terms, we have to have it somewhere signed and dated. And
Yeah, it has the quote date is July 12th, 2017. The original quote date was in April of 2016. That's when we started.
okay,
But
yeah,
it
there
does
is.
have the date of 7/12/2017.
And while we're asking questions, the lead time says 4 to 12 weeks. Is that,
On that same, it says 4 to 12 weeks right here.
She said they've been getting them for the equipment.
Mhm.
They've been getting them in about 4 weeks. They put that just in case they have several installs.
well, so they'll know about January now. They should be able to give us a 4 weeks.
Had you, Pat, had you looked at the financials at all? I mean, as far as if we're gonna need to ask for 30,000 from the city, or
No,
no? Is that something we're gonna have to decide? I mean, it looks like we're in pretty good shape right now, but I don't know next year that we're gonna have, I mean, are we gonna have this money? And I thought that was one of our major hang-ups last week, was knowing if we were going to actually have it.
The way I took it is the city would grant us an extra 30,000 if the figure's justified we didn't have enough money for the phone system. But if we have excess, that they would probably deny us.
Well, maybe that maybe don't need to be decided today whether we have to do that or not, but that's something we're going to have to look into in the very near future. 'Cause we would want to ask for that as quickly as possible from the city, so they can plan their budget around it also, if we would need to go that route. So how do we need to do this? Do we need to vote to approve you to go ahead and order this? Or are we to that point, or?
I'm ready to vote for it when the terms are on the purchase order correctly.
So,
The AT&T thing is,
okay, you want to wait until we get the paperwork with the correct terms on it before we approve it?
Okay,
All right,
that works. Thank you.
thank you.
Kim.
That's probably not the answer she was wanting to hear, but I think that's the smart answer. Let's get all the facts before we vote on doing something. Because
Well-
150,000, or 145,000.
Well, I didn't know whether it was just needed a simple approval for her to go ahead and get the ball rolling, and then, or to actually do, but,
Well, the way I read it, like Commissioner Barrett, as soon as we sign it, we gotta send a payment of 80% of that to them.
this, with the open firearms, who is bringing that? Here comes Jack.
Jack had asked me about it.
Oh, okay. Hello? Yes, at 1:30.
This could be a time to talk to him about that.
Kaminko, or
No,
the firearms?
open carry.
Yeah, I see the thing for the open carry here and the information. I just wondered what's going on with that. I mean, did you bring this to our attention?
No, I did
Did I, when we talked, I thought that's what you were asking me about, was the open carry restrictions.
not. Oh, well, I mean, we discussed it. I thought it
It's just on for discussion, there wasn't anything particular. And also, at Senior Village, the last week or so of the legislative session, they added an exception to allow you to prohibit open, or concealed carry, excuse me, at an adult care home. And of course, Senior Village would be one. And so you could ban concealed carry of firearms there.
for visitors or for everybody?
For everybody.
Are people eligible to carry concealed weapons at schools? As long as it's, the way I took it was any place that didn't have security present at the doorways, people are allowed to carry.
I believe now, yeah. The colleges, the big thing for us opening football games this weekend, they had their new security checks in place. I believe that the only issue would be is whether it's go ahead and post them on the injury for the open carry.
Yeah, and there's Attorney General had signs that they approved
Microphone
for it.
Big Jack's always up. You may have to ask him to come up.
And there's restrictions on, or instructions, I guess, on how they're to be posted, how high and how far away from the side of the door and that sort of thing. I don't have any idea what you want to do, or if you're inclined to take any action at all. I can draft whatever, whichever way you want to go.
I guess I don't have an opinion, and I wouldn't be. I'd have to have more information before I could really know what.
Generally, an open carry, for some reason, causes panic by by others. And nothing necessarily has really changed with the open carry except for the allowance in public buildings or if it's not posted. We've always been able to do it, and people have done it in the past, and we always get those 911 calls where it's panic. Somebody's going into the convenience store with a gun, well, it's not in his hand, it's on his hip or whatever, so that's the issue that you run into a lot is the panic more than breaking the law. If they're gonna be using it for a criminal act, it's probably not gonna be on their hip, so. I would suggest posting every door. Every entry. The judges obviously they're allowed to ban it in the courtroom as well as concealed carry. So they never mentioned anything about posting it. So
Wouldn't that have to be? I mean, at what point would that just be in the immediate courtroom, or would that be like basically when you get up to the second floor, or
I think they only have jurisdiction over the actual
courtroom?
Probably their areas as well.
I guess for my information only, say someone came in, they got up to the courtroom, they saw that, would they have to then take their weapon completely back out to their vehicle and secure it, or?
Yeah, we won't provide any social security.
I know some of these, I heard in the campuses that they were talking about having lock boxes where they could secure weapons. Say if they would want to go to a certain hall, they would have security. They could secure it in an outside lockbox. And not that I think we ought to do that. I was just kind of curious if there was anything else that they could do to.
I don't know at what point it becomes an issue of not being concealed once you expose it. So,
What's the most problematic, the concealed or the open carry? It's just that the visual.
For that reason. The size of guns that are available these days and holsters that they make for concealed carry. Not sure the purpose of actually carrying it besides your right. Open, as far as open carry.
I mean, I would just go with Jack's recommendation on any of this because, I'm not informed enough to know anything to the contrary. So, do we need to take any action?
I think you'll need to adopt a resolution to
Okay.
prohibit open carry in just the courthouse, all county buildings, the shop, city shop. What else would there? Senior Memorial Hall, sports complex.
Let me understand. We don't have to provide, I thought when you prohibited open concealed carry, you had to provide a security system for people to walk through.
Right.
This is open carry.
So this is open
They
carry.
call it unconcealed carry in the statute that I gave you.
Okay.
So
I don't know
we,
if it's been a problem or not.
we can say no open carry and not have security such as the ball field or Memorial Hall, still be okay?
Yes.
You can prohibit the open carry only. Without security. But I think it only pertains to buildings, doesn't it? Or does it say property?
Building.
So you couldn't ban it at a sports complex then?
Not the way I read it.
So we'll need to get a policy number.
Well, let's prepare a resolution for it. That's the direction is to apply to all buildings or just here?
Do you have an opinion? I really don't. I mean, what do you think, Jack? I mean, all buildings
say
or
all
just the
buildings.
courthouse or? I mean,
Maybe something to discuss with whoever's in charge of those buildings. Maybe.
what about Memorial Hall?
They've been fine with it from the way back. We've never had a problem. So,
Maybe for simplicity's sake, maybe just say in the courthouse. Would that pertain to the health clinic too, or? Yeah.
No. Well, they could do that. It's not under our control. We own the building, but they're a tenant.
Okay.
So it'd be up to the multi-county board.
Okay. While we're thinking of different places.
I would think if you had a disgruntled person, the problem would be either here or maybe to juvenile correction building. If they didn't hear something they liked, I don't think you'd have somebody, say at Memorial Hall, go down there and go wild, or the nursing home will go wild. I don't know. But there's always that chance.
The person with open, I'm not gonna say this, but quote me on this. Typically, it's not. gonna
can you
be
speak
that.
up a little bit?
The person that's wearing that gun openly is not the one that's gonna be causing the problem.
That's true.
Guess you never know.
Okay, it's 1:30. I think we need to go to opening the bids.
This is what that sign looks like.
Hmm?
It isn't printed, but that's what that sign looks like. Yeah. Yep. Here you go. You guys want the tabulation to keep track of everything? Would you want one? Yeah, that'd be one. Okay. I'm sure that I can make my copies too. I can make my copies. Sorry, we're gonna open this up. Sorry. You just sat down, right? And I don't think he's ready to get their word there all okay. I don't think we have all met yet. I'm Sarah with River Bluff Architects. Remember Pat? It's been a while. I appreciate you guys letting us work on the roofing project, and we have bid tabulations if you want a copy. You guys want to write down?
Mm-hmm.
There's one. Do you want one as well, please? Yeah, absolutely. Alrighty, I will sit over on this side that way. A little better. Alright, well, we appreciate everybody turning in the bids, and we will get started here, and it's 1:32 by my watch, I think. Alright, the first one here on top is J.B. Turner and Sons. And there may be some listed on the bid tab that didn't turn in bids. I told the guys out there that I just listed whoever had been on the list or it came to the pre-bid meeting and hadn't told me they weren't planning on bidding. So there may be a couple extra on here.
Ma'am, could you give us location of their business as well?
I'm sorry, yes, River Bluff Architects.
No, I mean.
Oh, these guys. Oh, yes. They are from Topeka, Kansas.
Topeka.
All right. J.B. Turner and Sons Roofing, Topeka, Kansas. The bid is for base bid 1, $189,900. Base bid 2 is $142,800. I guess I didn't have a spot on there, but if you need it, the number of calendar days for base bid number 1 is 90. 60 calendar days for base bid 2. They do have the unit values shown. They've received addendums 1 and 2. And they have their bid bond. Everybody got that? Alright. This is for Roberts Roofing from St. Joseph, Missouri. Base bid number 1, $134,600. Base bid 2 is $88,400.
And I presume that they all got the same specs,
Yes.
so we're comparing the same thing?
Yes. Should all have the same plans and specs, and they have marked down that they received the 2 addenda as well. They have 60 calendar days for both base bid 1 and 2. And they also have their bid bond. This one is from Cornell Roofing and Sheet Metal. They are from Independence, Missouri. Base bid 1 on this one is $280,644.
286.
44.
280,644.
Base bid 2 is 143,000 even. They have 90 calendar days for both base bids. And addendum 1 and 2 have been received and they have their bid bond. This one is from Meridian Roofing Solutions. They are also from Topeka. This one, base bid 1 is 134,455. 134,455. Base bid 2 is 85,288. They have 45 calendar days for both base bids. They have received addendum 1 and 2, and they have their bid bond as well. Alrighty. This one is from Delta Innovative Services Commercial Roofing, and they are out of Kansas City, Kansas. They have base bid number 1 as 201,000 even. Base bid 2 is 141,000. They have contract time as to be determined. They marked down that they received addendum 1. They don't have addendum 2 marked down. They do have their bid bond. Alright, and then last but not least, this is Midwest Coating, and they are also from Topeka. They have base bid 1 is 168,650. Base bid 2 is 105,700. They have 70 calendar days from notice to proceed for base bid 1, 60 days for base bid 2. They have received both addenda and they have their bid bond. And that is all the sealed bids that we have. So we appreciate it, gentlemen, and as soon as the commission makes up their mind on how they want to proceed, then I'll get that sent out and notified.
Okay, we appreciate all the bids.
Thank you for all your work.
Thank you.
What's the difference between base bid 1 and base bid 2?
Base bid 1 is a complete remove and replace. So all the insulation would be removed. They would remove all the existing roofing and remove all the existing parapet caps and replace those. Redo all the flashing, just basically remove and replace everything entirely, down to the deck. The base bid 2 is going to be a selective remove and replace, so it is going to include removing right now 20% of any of the roofing and insulation. Although we did have them go ahead and include an infrared scan in there to make sure if there's how much might be damaged by moisture. But to make everything equal, without a scan prior to the bid, we needed to have some number for them to all bid on so it was equal. So we just kind of said, let's plan on 20%, and then we have unit prices to determine if that needed to be adjusted above or beyond that once they did the scan. With that, they would remove any of the damaged insulation down to the deck and existing roofing down to the deck, and then they would put back new insulation in that place up to the level of existing surrounding insulation, cover the entire roof with a recover board, and then put a new roof on top of that, which is standard practice if you're going to do this single ply membrane roof over top of that asphaltic type of membrane that's down there now.
In the bid preparation, did we ask for warranties? How long was this be warranted?
It was a 20-year warranty.
They were all warranted the same?
Yeah. Yeah, they should all be the same warranty. It is a 60 mil TPO. Yeah, 20 years. Yeah. So that would be the same regardless of which base bid you went with. It's really a matter of how much is getting replaced. Is the essential difference. Both of them are getting new skylights, and there would of course be new flashing around the roof accessories, things like that, there because of the new membrane. But the essential part is going to be whether the insulation stays the same or if it's only partial replacement.
Joe, this question for you. In my opinion, if we eliminate base bid 2, doesn't that take a lot of well, you took base bid 2 and we went back warranty. Is that going to be a way to get out of some warranty if we went base bid 2 versus
I would
1?
say, I don't know what her opinion would be, but I think that the walls would pretty well have no warranty. If you had a leak against the wall, they would say that it should have been replaced or it should have been over the top.
See, that's what
Yeah.
On the base bid 2 you're talking
Right.
about.
Yeah, I mean,
I would go with
we'd be
base
doing
bid
new
1.
flashing up and under, but it certainly, if we're not
Base bid
redoing all
1.
the parapet caps, then there could be potential of leaking. It comes in through the parapet caps. If there was something like those, then they could still say that part of that hadn't been replaced, so there's still potential. I mean, honestly, if there's not a huge big difference between the two, and there is, but certainly if you do an entire remove and replace, you're making sure everything is brand new and it should be completely. So.
I have a little,
It
we're
looks-
talking $150,000 swing there on some of those bids.
Yeah, and I can't honestly, I mean, it is an interesting thing to try to figure out why we might have one that you have 280,644 and one's 134,000. Both of these, well, actually one's from Kansas City, Kansas, and this other one's from Topeka.
St. Joe.
Or no, they're independents. So
We have $234,000.
it would make you wonder what they've included that's different than the other guys. The rest of them are not quite as bad. They're within the line of what I would say.
The two lowest bids are fairly close on
Yeah.
the distance between base bid 1 and 2. The one from Topeka Meridian is at 49,167 between the two, and Roberts Roofing is at 46,200 between the two bids.
Yeah, and Meridian just beat out Roberts by a matter of $150 for the base bid 1. So they're
Right,
obviously
$45.
real close. They're bidding, and you can tell they're bidding the exact same thing. And even
Meridian has 15-day less quicker
you-
turnaround. Or
on their unit prices, just so you know, we did have them include the unit prices, like I said, in case they ran into something, and that could even happen with with base bid 1, to remove and replace the 2x treated wood blocking at the parapets. If for some reason they took off the parapet caps and found that there would be bad blocking that's normally at the top of the parapet. You want to make sure that that's replaced. And they have $2 per linear foot for that versus, that's with Meridian. Roberts is $3.10 per linear foot. If, like with base bid 2, if we were just doing part of it, to remove and replace existing insulation and roof membrane, Meridian had $5 a square foot for that. Roberts had $4.25 a square foot for it. So they're relatively close. One's a little higher and one's a little higher than the other. I have not worked with Meridian before. We've done work with Roberts. I have no issue with them. I think I had looked up Meridian online, did a quick search on them just to see who they were, because I have not run into them. I think they were one of the larger companies. Looked like they had done quite a bit of commercial and industrial work.
How many years have been in business? Is that on there?
No, they didn't have information on that, but let me see if I can. The joy of Google. Let me see if I can look them up real fast.
If we had any dealings with any of these companies, Joe, that you're
That's just what I
not,
was gonna ask.
didn't we have Roberts do Memorial Hall? No.
Brothers?
He did something, but I can't think of what it was. The name's familiar.
Well, I recall you saying we had some problems, but they corrected it, Memorial Hall.
I had no problems with him, I remember him real well.
No, I mean, we had some problems with whoever did Memorial Hall, but they corrected it.
Right.
They came back and
But
they,
that was,
Boone Brothers?
Boone Brothers.
Dune Brothers.
That was.
have you had any dealings with any of these companies? I mean,
I'd
from the,
have to look to check to make sure there's some that may have done Cedar Village, some of the stuff up there. The two that has the low bids, I don't think I really have, other than Roberts. And it may be I just had him bid, I'd have to check. It may be that he did some bidding and he didn't bid.
I know Roberts has done work around Atchison.
Dirk just said we were just one.
I looked up that Meridian because I hadn't heard of them either on the Better Business Bureau.
Mm-hmm.
And they had like a 5-star rating and A+ rating, so. you know,
They were the low
maybe-
bids,
Mhm.
lowest
That's
bidders.
what I'm trying to.
well, they have
40
the,
years in business.
the shortest time too, at
4
45
years
days.
in business.
They carry a number of different roofing solutions. So sometimes even just having a website is a good sign, because some of these guys,
Mm-hmm.
Here today and gone tomorrow.
yeah, yes, you've run into that. Looks like they've done work on the Prairie Band Casino. Said it was a 90,000 square foot project. They did Santa Fe Trail High School, Topeka High School, Stormontville Hospital,
Well, I'd say it'd be one of these.
Metropolitan
It is
Topeka
one of these.
That's who I-
Airport Authority. It's a 40,000 square foot.
Well, looking at the numbers, I would say either Roberts or Meridian. Those are the two lowest. If the 4 years is not very long to be in business, so that's kind of a negative.
On which one?
Meridian's only been in 4 years.
It's like they have an office in Omaha too, so they may be a bigger company.
I see. Yeah, man, if we're doing it, I want it to be done right versus saving $4 or $5, $10,000.
Yeah,
I think that the high bid is probably, we can throw it out, that's a 280.
Oh yeah.
The
I'd
tr-
say
the
yes.
top two
So
up there.
Two high
basically,
bids, yeah.
basically, even the 189 is quite a bit. So you got 134, 455, 134, 6, or 168, 650. I think those would be the only three that what you would consider? And I don't know nothing about Midwest. I don't know nothing about any of them, but
I hear Midwest Coating advertise a lot on Topeka stations.
They've been around for a while.
They've done a lot of work for, I believe, the city and here in Atchison.
No, they did the fire department and City Hall, Dr. Huntington's office, Regals. They gave me a whole list of buildings that they've done in Atchison. I find it. It has it.
That's Midwest.
Yeah.
Do you know of any others besides what she said about Meridian? I mean,
No, I just never heard of them, so I looked them up on the
Mhm.
Yeah.
Business Bureau.
the rating's good,
And,
5-star.
and what you said, they've been in business 4 years.
That's what Pat looked up.
That's what their website says.
any recommendations?
That's what I was gonna say. What do you,
I would love to come back next week after we have a chance to look over. Would that be the proper way?
Fine, with me. Yeah.
First, are you ready to confident to?
I mean, I haven't worked with Meridian. What little I've seen about them, I don't have any issue. I mean, they're certainly the low bid. Justifiably, they're not hugely out of line. If they were, 50,000 less than the next bid, then I might be a little concerned because that usually means that somebody's forgotten something. But they're right there in line with the same prices that Roberts had. So that to me tells me that they're bidding the same information. And they've got all the information that they've provided. There are 45 calendar days for it. So they had also included their proposed subcontractors form, which technically I don't think had to be turned in until tomorrow, but they're self-performing everything. So, at this particular moment, looking through everything that they have, I don't have an issue with Meridian.
how long's Robert's been in business? Any idea?
Oh gosh, they've been around for a long, long time. I mean, I've been with River Bluff for
That's who I'd go with.
18 years nearly, and they've been in business at least that long, if not longer. They've been around with St. Joe. They've done a ton of work around that area. I don't know how much they've done here, but
I think they may have did waterproofing. I'm sitting here trying to think.
okay. I know they've done a ton of work around
That's been a long time.
St. Joe. Yeah.
I guess I would probably lean towards Meridian right now, just on the 45-day timeline, and then for the blocking and stuff that you talked about, they were even underpriced on that.
They
Sometimes
were a little bit lower. Yeah, they were $2 for the treated wood blocking. They were $5 for removing existing insulation and roof membrane and replacing that. But if you're taking base bid 1, then that kind of goes away.
Mhm.
You don't really need that.
But I've heard sometimes they'll have an initial contract kind of low, but then periphery change orders and things like that, they can jack up.
Yeah.
I mean, so they were even the leanest on that. So
yeah.
so
yeah, and
I
that way we had that nailed down before we ran into something with a potential change order. That's why I put that in there.
mhm.
What do you think, Sheriff?
I'll leave that up to the experts.
Joe.
I'm fine with I'm fine with Meridian. I mean, technically they're your low bid, and I, from anything that I'm seeing, hasn't been an indication of why you would need to throw it out and go to Roberts. As a public entity, I know that gets real challenging.
I would just said what I was.
Kind of look at them and see
Mhm.
what you can go through them.
I would just give my just a face value what it was. I've expected that we would come back next week. I wasn't trying to influence anything. That's just my initial. And if I don't know if you had any.
I think they need some time to look at the details. I feel more comfortable. I hate to give someone a bid for $145.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt to kind of
Yeah.
make sure everything's included. Yeah.
Right.
I'll be fine.
I think that's the safest and
If it's
sleep on
apples
it.
to apples, which it should be.
Did you get the, of course, I guess it's not important, but did you get the numbers down? The bid numbers?
Yes, I got
Okay.
it here, but I'll get copies of the
Yeah.
little bit.
Get copies of everything. I didn't get all of them written down. I can't write and talk at the same time. It would be just so.
So you take them and look at them, then you can get back with your recommendation, and that's probably who we'll go with.
Sounds good.
Thank you very much.
We're still looking at the air conditioners correct and replace them, so I can bring those numbers to you as well.
Now, these times, was that times they can get started on it, or is that times from the day they start it's complete?
That was time from notice to proceed. So once if we said that a contract was the notice to proceed, then once they signed that contract, then they would have 45 days from
To
there
start-
to finish up. Yeah.
Oh, to finish.
Yeah, for
Finish.
substantial completion. Yeah.
Okay.
So that would be,
That's another big plus in their favor, the 45 days.
That's where I was
Well,
looking at
yeah,
that.
it'd be done
Weather-related.
before winter.
Gets-
Yeah,
yeah.
you'd still have time to get that
That's the
done.
reason I was leaning towards Meridian is mainly that 45 days. Not so much, so almost identical to the Roberts in the pricing.
So you're looking at getting
Oh, the
done,
Roberts is still
you
good.
know,
60.
There's the
early
next
November.
lowest bid, you know, I mean, they're within just a couple $100, $150 of one another, so.
Yeah.
But they've got a 45-day versus a 60, which the 60 isn't bad.
No, 60 sounds like it's
If-
pretty typical from what everybody else.
If the
said.
recommendation was for Roberts, I could go for that, but I'm just saying, just on
Yeah.
what I'm seeing.
Be done that much faster.
Yeah.
Plus, they'll be finished before it gets too cold, which is going to be an issue coming up before too long. You know, if the weather drops or temperatures drop quickly, then the fully adhered TPO membrane becomes a challenge because it has to be done in certain temperatures. So,
And that's working days on that,
yeah,
so.
it should be calendar days. Yeah,
It's calendar days, so what if we get 30 days of rain?
Yeah, there are a certain number of days that are allowed
Exempt
for
or-
the contract for each month. So say there might be
But that's,
6 in September.
that could be any contractor though.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
that really
Yeah.
doesn't relate.
Yeah, I wasn't specifying one contractor on that.
Yeah,
That would be,
yeah,
that would be
but
the same.
yeah, that was part of the basic conditions that they have a certain number of days per month that they get for weather days, and anything beyond that then they can claim as a weather delay. But that way we just keep everything moving along a little bit more efficiently, and there's no arguing over weather days. Yeah.
So then Joe will look it over, come back to us,
Yeah,
and
we'll
then
get
Joe,
copies.
Joe will contact, and
Yeah.
you'll notify the winning bid and thank the others.
Yep, and I could look them over at the same time, make sure everything's good.
Yeah, any input you have, we
Probably.
appreciate it.
Probably just the three lowest ones.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you much.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about you as I drove into town, wondering how you were doing. I
I'm
should
doing
stop
good.
by and say hi. So, oh, good.
Doing good?
Yeah. Trying to get a new growth on the law enforcement.
Okay, now Joe, did they look at that breezeway, or is that a totally different, another subject?
That's part of it.
Oh, that's part of that too?
Yeah, I said,
Oh,
the only thing is-
I didn't think we was doing them both at the same time.
I
Good.
only got state.
Okay, we didn't
Good.
know that.
We didn't know that, good.
Yeah, this, they approved the state,
Okay,
and that's in the bid.
individually.
There may be a thing with the warranty because it's so short, because we didn't want to go over the top. We have to do that, and we'll have to go back and maybe some more money for that.
Well, that's great, if that's in there.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think, I'm not sure, they said that the crossover was okay, right?
Yes, the state had sent through that approval on the
But it
launch.
was short, we're not gonna have to go over the top.
Not that we know of at this point in time. Yes. Yes.
But that's not a big deal, I mean, that's not that much, even if we do, but it may be a little delay, because then I have to go back through the state. So,
State-
if they have to go back with the, over the top, you say you have to reapply to the state?
well, I just gotta get it reapproved, but it should be, it's part of the original plans that they drew up, so it should be just a matter of days to be approved. And that's something I'll have to get with the contractor, make sure that they get right on that, and let me know. Because it'll take them 45 days, and in 30 days, I know I'll have it.
We gonna have any security issues, Jack, with them tearing skylights out and, no?
Michael Jordan's in there.
There's bars on it.
Okay.
Yeah, the bars are down below, so you can't get out, even if the skylight's out.
I guess I had more of a question about where they have dumpsters located, or where they're, you know, that
They're gonna use, that's in there, that was in the second,
addendum, or,
addendum that they had. They're gonna use the west part, our parking lot.
okay,
For everything, and then we'll figure out parking for our guys.
okay. Well, anything on that, that's your forte, you're gonna have to let us know on that. If there's any, okay?
go
All
on.
right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Want to come on up, Mr. Baum?
Thank you.
Thank you for having me here today. Roger Edgar with George P. Baum and Company. And I'll go ahead and pass those out. There's not a lot in there, but I think there's enough to,
You want one or four?
Oh, she ought to have one to go. All right, thank you.
but there is, I think, enough to have a good conversation. I had spoken with the county councilor a couple weeks ago, and we were advised that commissioners had been talking about bridge repairs. And, just not sure exactly how much you're talking about spending or whether that's all really been nailed down yet, but I thought I would come up and go over the methods that the commission can use to finance bridges in Kansas, and then you can decide,
I think our intent, sir, was to start out small and let the public see what we're doing, and then next time maybe increase the amount of the bond
Okay,
to show them what we can do and how we could save, and then
sure.
we can go up to what, 5% of what was our percentage? We can go up. We could borrow more the first time than what we're actually going to do, or bond more the first time than we're actually going to bond.
The, under Kansas statutes, there's 2 or 3 statutes that you can use for a project like this, and you have to find a statute to point to authorize your project. The one that I think is the most flexible is K.S.A. 68-1103. And it's a statute that it works for bridges or for roads. The bridge repair statute is like many statutes in Kansas. Because I think bridges are often a public safety issue, the steps for authorization are pretty, the hurdles for authorization are pretty low. You can just pass a resolution and proceed. The county has a statutory debt limit of 3% of your assessed valuation, but the bonds that you would issue for bridge repairs are exempt from that. So we don't really have to worry about that under this statute. If you use this statute, the debt limit is not a concern.
How much will this affect us that we let BC bond some of our money? Will it just lower our amount that we can bond?
Those are industrial revenue bonds. Well, I don't think.
Oh, that's different.
Yeah, they wouldn't affect. They don't count either.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, when you said BC, Benedictine College.
College, yes.
Yeah. The college's bonds are. They're really not even an obligation of the county. The college is the obligor, so they don't count against you.
Okay.
Either. So, you really don't have any real problems with your bonding capacity, and this wouldn't affect it. Where it's challenging for counties is if it's big building projects like a jail or something. That's where we run into, frankly, where the statutes aren't as flexible as they probably should be. But for bridges, it's not an issue. And so you can, once you decide how much you want to borrow, how many bridges you want to repair, and what your budget is, then you get a good sense of the numbers. Then you can pass a resolution and proceed directly on with bond issue. We've, in the last couple of times we've worked with the county, we've been able to take bids from banks and just do a bank placement of your bonds, and that's worked pretty well. We can do a something else, but that's a pretty good option. If it's, if the bond issue is $2 million or less, or, $1,999,000, we can proceed that way without, without, under the statute, without any issues. So you have options in terms of how you sell the bonds as well, and the bank placement is a pretty good way to go because we don't have to pay for the offering prospectus and a rating on the bonds, and so the cost of issuing the bonds are a little less.
Now, under the statute, is this for bridges only? Could any road project be in that same thing, or?
Roads can also be included.
Oh, I'm listening, I'm not reading.
Yeah. No, it's a good question. Roads can also be included. The difference, the statute treats road improvements differently. With if you do road improvements, then for the road improvement portion at least, there is a 60-day notice and protest period before you can proceed. I think it's 60-day 5%. So, and then if there's a petition, which almost never happens, but if someone objected to it and a petition was circulated, it could force an election. But honestly, I've never seen that with a road project by county.
Well, the reason I ask is because we really need the bridges the worst, but, it's been kind of brought up, well, maybe a road project maybe would tie in with a bridge or something like that. So when we would apply for this, do we have the bridges already lined out exactly which bridges we're doing first, or do we see if we get the funding and then select what bridges we do? I mean,
I think
I think Seth's done chosen some bridges,
Yeah.
haven't? Oh, you haven't? I thought you
legally, I don't think you'd have to
designate.
nail down exactly which bridges you're doing, but and I'm not your bond attorney, but I think that's what the attorneys would say. But I think as a practical matter, we want to have
for the public consumption, so they know which bridges we are.
Well, and your numbers, you kind of want to I guess from a business perspective, you want to have a good solid budget, but it's not a legal issue.
Mm-hmm. Never having gone through this, I was just kind of how the process goes. What do we need? We'd actually need to select the bridges then first, and so they could be named as we go forward.
Yeah, it's better to do it that way. It's better to have some kind of, a certificate or something, some kind of, affidavit that says this is what our intent is, this is how we're planning on spending the money. And
Well, I think
it's just cleaner.
You'd have to almost do that to know how much to bond, wouldn't you?
Yes,
I mean,
think so.
why bond for $5 million if you only need $1 million, or bond for $1 million when you need $1.5 million? You got to
Well,
have the actual numbers.
Yeah, and honestly, from your perspective as commissioners, estimates, they come in low a lot, and you don't want to put yourself in a situation where people are criticizing you because you didn't borrow enough or you borrowed too much. So I would, if I were in your shoes, I mean, my feeling is I would get it. It doesn't have to be completely narrowed down, but you ought to have a pretty good, engineer's estimate or architect's estimate of the repair. Something pretty solid, I think.
See, my vision is, Seth, how much you budget for bridge repairs every year? Bridge replacements? Maybe generally.
Replacements, it just depends on the year.
I'm sorry.
On the bridge replacements, it depends on which year we're in.
But just
So,
as an average, what do you?
If it's all system bridges, up to 100,000. If it's completely county funded, I'd say 250 to 300,000.
Okay, so I guess my vision is you do a bond year one. You use some of the money you generally had budgeted for a bridge project for your first year payment. and maybe in year 3, you do another bond. Wait 2 years on year 6, you do another bond. So you can get our challenge is we don't have just a few bridges. We have lots of bridges.
Yeah.
And
Well, yeah, and there, I guess what you're getting into, Commissioner, I think, is how you sort of feather in or lay in to
Mhm.
get into the tax the property
Right.
tax aspects of it, and we haven't done anything here with that, but we could, you know,
Mhm.
you know, we know, I've tried in this little handout here to show you what the cost would be for a bond issue at either 10, 15, or 20-year amortization. And, you know, one mil is gonna be worth 1/10 of 1% of your assessed valuation, so, you know, and I lose track, but I'm thinking your AV is it 80 million, or is it, am I high? I think it's, well, I think it's, you know.
Assessed valuation of the county?
Yeah.
I think you're a little low.
it's for like 100.
Yeah, because you would want to include the motor
Maybe
vehicle
not.
question in that
Huh?
153. So if it's 153 million, 1 mil would be 153,000. And so, you know, a $2 million.
That would be about right, because 2017 total valuation less valuation adjustment was 148.9, so,
Yeah.
and for 2018, I don't have that figure here, but
So a
That'd
little
be-
less than 1 mil for $2 million and a 20-year amortization. On a bridge, you could do a 10-year amortization, but, you know, I guess the bridge is probably going to have a pretty long life. It's your call. I mean, there's no wrong answer here in terms of whether you borrow for 10 years or 20 years or anything in between.
I've been discussing this with young farmers and older farmers. I haven't got any negative, but the young ones like the fact that their machinery's getting larger. They'll be able to use the bridge, it's safer, and pay for it over time. Now, some of the older ones might say, well, I'm not going to be around, you know, I'm not going to get any benefit, but I've never heard any negative. They realize that the bridges is a problem,
Yeah.
and the can's been kicked down the road too long, and now we got a big problem.
Yeah.
So we got to get more aggressive, and that's when Commissioner Barr come up with the thought of bonding, and instead of building one every year, let's go out and build 6 or 8, and then wait a couple years and build another 6 or 8.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no Cajun saying, stay ahead of the hound dogs.
Yep.
You know, so.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
I hear them barking.
if you can afford to do the 10-year amortization, you know, then even though it sounds like a long time, 10 years actually goes by pretty quickly.
And then you retire in some of these and you can keep them going.
Yes, that's the point, is
Yeah.
that as they're paying off, you're recapturing that capacity faster, and you have the ability.
Even though you put them up 10 years, you could pay them off earlier, or not.
Most bond issues would typically have about a 7-year call protection. In other words, the purchasers want to know that they can hold the bonds for 7 to 10 years before they're paid off, before the borrower, the county, has the ability to call them in. Now, if we're dealing with a bank purchaser, that's a point of negotiation. We can ask for something a little shorter and see if they'll give it to us without you know, affecting the interest rate adversely.
I don't know if this makes sense, but to me, I would rather go shorter term, because if you're going 10 years out, and then first thing you know, you're $5, $8, $10 million in debt, and it's all going to be paid back.
Yeah.
Where if you went shorter term, you know, like you said, skip a year, skip 2 years, and then another one, do 2 years, because you'd be basically, you know, 3/4 of the first one paid off before you did another one. I like that fact of
Well,
it.
if you did them every 3 years, you'd actually have 3 bonds indebtedness at a time. Because
In the 9th year, you would be
Yeah.
entering your first Your first year of your,
So-
of three.
So, okay.
The other thing that this gives you that I haven't mentioned is, we have a new, effective this year, there's a tax lid that the legislature has, in its wisdom, has put on local governments. The payments on bonds are exempt from that.
Oh,
So,
That's a big plus.
that's a big plus. It
Big
really is,
plus.
because
We just dealt
if
through
you're
that
trying
doing
to do-
budget.
If you're trying to pay as you go, you can't really raise your levy
Mhm.
to do pay as you go funding. But bond issues, you can.
It's a good deal.
yeah, and you're looking at the interest rate, but you're also looking at if at the end of the first year, you've already got 6 bridges there, you've got 9 years of use in that 10 years, if you get that built.
Plus, the
So,
bridges are gonna get more expensive,
yeah.
Oh, most
and
definitely.
it's a low interest rate environment.
That's the other, and I'm not trying to sound like I'm selling this idea too hard, but interest on a 10-year bond issue today is gonna be in the below 3, probably well below 3%. So, you can't, I think inflation will cost more than that.
Yeah.
It will go up by more than 2.5% a year. So I think it's not, if you're going to borrow money, it's not a bad time to do it. Maybe that's the best way to say it. No one likes to borrow money, but
Mhm.
if you need to borrow money, there are a lot of reasons.
I don't wanna
why this
borrow
isn't
money
bad.
because money's cheap. I wanna borrow money because we need it.
Right,
And we need it and it's cheap. That's the
Yeah.
good thing.
right. I think that's the right logic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Seth, do you have any questions?
If the bonding payment does not affect our tax lid, I would impose maybe going a little higher than what I was looking at first.
Well, you might wanna do it bigger, a little higher to begin with.
Yeah.
You said lower than higher. Maybe it's higher
Well,
than
my
lower.
first thought was, let's do $1 million. Let's show the public what we're doing. But if it doesn't go against the tax lid, I may move that up to 2 million. Just depends on how many bridges we can get and to go that. That's my opinion. I don't want to go out there too far. I want to prove to the public that that's the right thing to do. And
If we stay at, I don't know if it's 2 million or less, or 1 million, or under 2 million, but there's a statute that at $2 million, if we're below 2 million, even by $1, then you have more flexibility to sell the bonds to
banks, why not?
banks, yeah. And without doing refinancings or other things that you don't really need to do.
Well, what Seth probably needs to do is come to us and say, here's $1 million project. Here's $1.5 million project.
I don't think we'd have any of them that big. We'd have
No, I'm talking
a
about,
group.
I mean, a group of $1 million.
Oh,
Group of $1.5 million, a group of 2 million. Just kind of see what our options would be.
well, I think first we'll have to just kind of take an overall view of the bridges, locations, maybe even get that traffic counter out there so we can justify these bridges when it comes time to it. How much are they being used, and so we have as much information as possible when we sell this, for lack of better words, to the public.
Our upfront cost is gonna be getting the engineer involved, deciding what that bridge will cost to replace. With my experience, I've noticed the engineering cost is always a lot higher than what the actual construction cost will be, more times than not. And it just depends on how we go, if we want an engineer to design everything and then put it out for bid, or we wanna have a company that does the design, bid, and build all in one.
We want that. We want that.
But there's
That's what I
a few of
think.
those companies out there, so.
Because
It
just
depends
like
the type of pressure you want.
we made one very minor change on the last culvert, and it cost us how much?
And that's a state project, that's kind of a different ballgame.
Yeah, but whenever you get a change order involved, you just open your checkbook up.
So, we got a lot of discussion to decide on, you know, what route we wanna go with it.
Yeah, we're just trying to get an idea of how this works, timelines, you know, what we need to do first.
The bond issue itself, if it was just bridges and no roads, you could, and you were ready to go, you had, the numbers were all ready, and, you know, you knew exactly how much you wanted to borrow and approximately which bridges you wanted to repair. The bond issue would take 60 days or so. I mean, it's not a long calendar. If you do the road improvements, if you add road improvements, then you have another 60 days on top of that.
I would shy away from that myself. I never, you know, I'd rather just go for the bridges. The bridges are our Achilles heel.
Come later.
Yeah.
And that's something we could do a lot of that in-house. On, you know, bridge work, we don't have a bridge crew, so, you know, that's work that we would put out anyway, so.
Right. Right, and so it's not this statute is a good statute. It's really flexible. It can, you know, you really have the authority to do this legally with a resolution. And the rest is really just business decisions that you make on how, you know, how much you want to nail everything down, and, you know, just be reasonable in terms of knowing how much you're borrowing and what it's for and that sort of thing. Just prudent man kind of stuff.
Well, Mark, you're financially, what's your take on this?
Well, we've bought Atchison County bonds before, and you know, I know just looking at your numbers, you are certainly healthy. I mean, you have the ability to do it. I agree, these rates are low. I mean, everybody says they're gonna go up, they're gonna go up. Well, they went down more, they went down some more today. You know, I guess I'm not quite sure what you were talking about, where you were doing it more with a bank. Is that kind of pre-negotiated? Is that what you're?
Well, we would. There's two approaches we can use to sell bonds. The one approach is what we'll call public offering, and we publish an official statement. We probably have to go get a bond rating, and then the bonds would be sold in $5,000 and $10,000 denominations or multiples to purchasers. And the other approach is a bank placement, and that's what I talked about. And there what we would do is we would go out and talk to banks, get a list of banks, include local banks, and it would either be an all or none, you know, purchase, which it would typically be. If there were a couple banks that wanted to go in, you know, we could do that. But we'd take bids from those banks and then bring that result back for the county commission to consider.
That's cheaper to do.
It can be. You know, sometimes the interest rate going that way might be equal to or a tiny bit higher, but the savings comes from the fact that you don't have to buy the bond rating, which is $15,000, and you don't have an official statement to publish, which is another $5,000 or $6,000, and then so there's almost a 1% right there of cost that you avoid. And then the other thing you avoid, which I think is more significant, is under these new rules you have what's called continuing disclosure responsibility, where you've got to file your audits, and there's a lot each year electronically with the SEC on a website, and with the bank placement you don't have to do that. And it's not that there's a cost to keeping up with all that, but there's also a liability that your clerk is exposed to if you miss a deadline. And I just don't, find, if you've only got 1 or 2 bond issues outstanding, avoiding that is something that we want to talk about and talk seriously about, and make sure that if you go into it, you know what the rules are and you're ready to take them on. But but knowing that there's a way to avoid it is good. And honestly, with issuers that have just 1 or 2 bond issues, they almost always go for the private placement route now to avoid those compliance costs and liabilities. It's a big deal. We're seeing enforcement actions now against cities and counties for not filing timely. And the problem is that the biggest problem is the auditing firms that prepare the audits aren't used to this yet. So they're still delivering the audits late, so you can't file them timely even if you wanted to. So it's a little bit of a mess right now, and sidestepping that is an advantage.
I do like the idea of 10 years or less. That's about as long as we like to look out to a 10-year.
Yeah.
10-year. And of course, I have guidelines per community. I mean, how much I can borrow. You know, it's something we would be very interested in working with and participating. And you're right, because there's a thing called Emma that watches to make sure that everything is being filed, and if something doesn't get updated, and I've got to look at every Q-SIP, or every bond has a Q-SIP or an identifier with it, and if something isn't filed, I get a little email that's from Emma and says this county hasn't filed this, and it's a little bit of a mark against them. You know, it's what a continuing disclosure that has to be made, and I look at a lot of those, and they're fairly lengthy. You're talking about your community, your project, and your largest employers.
Okay, now you said you get that as the bank, but could that be some kind of system like that for our clerk? Is there something that would give us an alert, or that something's not?
You can hire a law firm. You can enter into a consulting arrangement with a law firm to do that for you. And that process would cost you about, just to enter into the relationship with the law firm would be about $2,500 to $3,000 a year. And then they would actually upload your financials to Emma for you. But the audit's got to be ready. And that's where sometimes there's an issue, because accountants, they want to do the audit when they're not busy, and they'll give you a better price on it if you make them do it and deliver it in the first 120 days of the year. When they're busy doing taxes, it'll cost you more.
There's a lot of small communities that are receiving adverse opinions from their auditing firm, because they are using kind of more of the state statutes and not meeting some of the federal for disclosures for general accepted accounting principles. So that's another consideration on how you do the audit and the degree that you go into on that.
So let me clarify. With the bank placement option, since those securities are purchased by a bank and they're not out in the public being traded and exchanged, those filing requirements, the issue is exempt from those.
Okay.
So you sidestep them. And right now, you're not subject to this rule, and we would want to make sure that as you consider your borrowings, that you make, if you've got the ability to not be subject to it, that's another relevant factor in considering which way to go.
Did that also have to do with the audit of the county? I mean, or
That eliminates that, didn't you say that?
does that eliminate the standard practices and procedures? What I was wondering is, would it make a difference what time of year that we would bond this out? Do the requirements, or if there are any of these requirements, are they due like at the year anniversary of when we bonded this out? Would that make any difference when our audit comes in, or?
No.
Okay.
No, it doesn't. You know, we, you know, if we work with a bank that wants to see your latest financials, let's just say it's March, and your 2017, March of 18, and your 2017 audit hasn't yet been delivered. And we have your 16 audit, but not your 17. And a bank says, well, we want to see your latest financials. Or even if we go a public sale and the rating agency says, we want to see your latest financials. We can work with the clerk to put together unaudited year-end balances. And so we can have those conversations. I mean, we're used to that. The issue is that if you're subject to the disclosure, if you're subject to it, then you have to sign an agreement, a contract with the bond purchasers that says your audit that you'll file this by a certain date each calendar year. And that's where we've had trouble is, you can make it 210 days. We even got a couple of counties that have 240-day requirements. And I think I'm working with one right now. 210 days is, I think, today. It's here within the last week or so. And they just got it filed, just right under the wire. So it's kind of makes you pull your. It's one of these things where keeping up with it you can kind of pull your hair out.
Okay. Anybody have anything else?
You did a very good job of explaining it to us. Thank you very
Do you have
much.
any questions or comments?
I'll just, wait to hear from Patrick in terms of next steps, but I'll be happy to come up and we can run a mill levy analysis for you, or if you want to, we could get if you want to put roads in, we can get that clock ticking,
I'd probably just stick with the bridges, especially with that 60-day timeline, and that roads is something that we can do on our own.
I'm just talking for 1/3. I would like to say strictly bridges, and I'm for the bond, so I would say start doing your work. Seth can start doing his work, get some engineers, look at some bridges, we'll get some numbers together, but 1/3 of us very interested in going forth.
Okay.
I'm interested.
Very good. Thank you
All
so
right,
much.
thank you very much.
Roger, where do you office at?
Kansas City.
Kansas City.
So it's hour and a half, so it's easy for me to.
Thanks for visiting our great city.
Thank you, Mark.
I enjoy it.
Thanks again.
Mark,
It's got a great county.
do you want to mention anything about the overnight, or have you got any more information, or?
Well, I think we've taken a look and the rates are still in a very extreme low environment, but I think we're going to be in a position to be able to pay the county a little bit more on their daily funds that are deposited with us. So I don't know if you want who you want me to communicate that to. I've got that ready. Do you want me to?
Probably
Treasurer
I would,
Or you want to?
Yeah, probably should go through her.
Right.
Treasurer.
yeah, if you want to, probably could
CC.
carbon copy Pat,
okay.
and that way we get two sets of eyes looking at it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Okay. Good deal. We'll get that done.
Thanks
all
for
right,
coming.
thank you very
All right,
much.
thank you.
I have one,
Come on up here. My thing would be is we're gonna have to start identifying some bridges first.
Well, I think he's already got 6
I
picked
got a
out.
good handful I can point out probably within a week. I just need to go back through some of the old calls from the inspections. And then just start selecting throughout the entire area instead of, a selected area that, we just went and looked at a couple that day just because he had that much time. Yeah, there's a good, too many to look at. I don't know, we'll just have to narrow them down by the ratings of them and go from there.
Well, ratings, maybe
Criticals is my top priority with the
Right.
ratings.
Volume of traffic,
I'd look for ones that are specifically if there's no other route in, especially some of these, they can be on a kind of a minimum maintenance road. If there's no other way into some of these places there, we've
think
got
that-
to maintain
I
them.
think you're going, well, that's township, so we including township bridges as well.
Yes, that's because.
They're all ours.
Well, that's true, that's true, that's
So I'll look
true.
at detour routes. I mean, if they're over a certain amount, that'll be a high priority. I mean, the ones that are within the mile sections you can get around are low priority, unless they're for extra critical lane, low suspension rating, low rating. All those come into a factor, so it's a bunch of spreadsheets I look at, and I take those and go through another process, and eventually I come down to a good dozen of them. But the way, like I said, you can go the design bid build package deal, or you can go, an engineer comes in, looks at each one of these and designs it. But then again, you got the cost of that engineer.
I think if you cut out the middleman, there might be some savings. If you went, of course, then again, you're trusting that company that you're buying from, that they know what they're doing and their prices are accurate.
So because there's not very many companies that have the design bid build. You could probably find a firm that does that. I've never dealt with, I've only dealt with one, which is Husker Steel. We could try to look into some other options, some people we've never dealt with.
Are we thinking, like, if we do a package, we're going to do 6 all with one company? Or are we doing,
So that's where we're getting. If
If
you
it
have an
saves some money.
engineer,
To get the
yeah.
big savings, you're
If
gonna
you have
have.
that same company design bid build and do a package, then yeah, they're gonna give you a lot of savings. If you do an engineer that designs all of them and then you put them all out for bid and have 6 different companies coming in to do 6 different bridges.
well, I thought
Right.
maybe you'd divide like 3 and 3 if you were going to have 6, or 3 and 4.
Well,
Or,
just get one more. There's surely more than one firm that does it all.
I'm sure I've just never
Just
done,
have it-
none
just
that
have
ever
it.
actually came.
Okay,
to
we
us.
want to do these 6 bridges. We want you to engineer it. We want you to build it and everything. What's the cost? We go over here and we look at another bid, and then we look at the history, their background, their company, and then we go for it.
And we also got to decide, do we want a full concrete structure? Do we want steel concrete? Do we want, there's all them options. It's which way do we want to go?
I think the ball's in your court to tell us that.
Okay. And I'm good with that. I just didn't know if you guys had a specific
Concrete's
type.
longer term, isn't it? Or not? What's your preference, steel concrete or?
It doesn't really bother me either way. Steel rusts,
Well,
concrete falls and falls apart.
what's going to last the longest and service us the best?
I feel like concrete would hold up better, especially the equipment. Steel, don't get me wrong, they put steel so far in the ground till they hit rock, and then, so they're sturdy structures also. Repair work's probably easier on steel than it is concrete, but again, concrete's a little bit.
What do you feel the trend as most counties are doing?
It really depends. State projects more or less are all concrete. More of the locally funded projects are steel concrete.
Well, that also depends on the side of the bridge too.
Correct. If it's a 100-foot bridge, it's going to be all concrete. If it's a 25-foot bridge, more times than not, it's going to be a steel bridge with a concrete deck.
the reason I had mentioned about having 2, would they get to it faster? If you had 2 different companies and they were going to build 3, would they both be on the ground working basically simultaneously? If you had one company coming in and doing 6 bridges, is it going to take them all year to do 6 bridges?
Correct.
I think the savings, it'd be worth waiting if you're getting 6 done where we're getting 1 done now.
Which depending on the bridge structure, like a 25-foot
Depends on how much the
bridge
savings would
structure,
be.
A steel bridge, it might only take 2-3 months and they're out of here. So you could have all 6 of them done in 1 year.
I'm just asking the question.
It's hard telling.
yeah.
You could have 2 companies in here and they can be done in 6 months.
I tell you what though, if you had one company come in and say, we're gonna do these 6, you'd be surprised how much, because they'd have this group doing this much and they just go, and it would go like clockwork.
Also, if you picked a firm and you didn't like their bridge, you would have 6 identical,
That's true too.
could possible 6 identical structures.
So
That's something, you know, we really need a set of plans to look at, decide whether we like that structure, or even go and look at other counties that they've built, you know, give us a list of places they've built bridges, and we can go take a look at the structure and see if we are comfortable with that structure.
But you do have that thing hanging over their head. Okay, we want 6 bridges. We want them done right because 2 years from now we're doing this again. And if you give us one crappy bridge out of the 6, we're going elsewhere.
Correct.
So that's a little leverage we have.
Well, that's again where I was thinking of 2 different ones. If we had 2 different people,
Price them, see if there's.
yeah.
It's perfectly common sense tells me if there's not that big a savings, yeah. See which one does the best job.
The next time around, we might go with the one that done the best job, and you know that would be
different
the.
engineers and different, like, road superintendents, like, I could choose this one, or another superintendent from this county over likes these. I mean, that's why I'd like to have input from you all. I mean, what structures you like, considering, you know, I'll give you my opinion. But
I would like to see them spread out, and I feel good and bad because here lately I think I've got maybe 4 or 5 in my district, and I think there's only been 1 out west. I'm not saying don't build bridges in my district, but let's spread them out. Let's take a tour someday, either an off day or a special day that we go look at them. You have all the stuff. You have our maps, what kind of, how the engineer factor critical, how much traffic goes over, and then we go from there. And then get with some builder and say, okay, we're thinking this bridge and this bridge and this bridge and this bridge. Now what's the cost?
Yeah, I would definitely like to look at each possibility before we have to make a decision. Like if we were thinking that the funding was going to do 7 bridges, you might have like 10 possibilities, and then we could select as a commission between those possibilities. You know, there might be some that are.
That $2 million, I mean, if we're talking $2 million, I know you said you were thinking.
Knowing what I heard today, I would probably, if I had to vote, I'd probably vote $2
I mean,
million.
depending on the size of the bridges, you could almost get upwards of 10 bridges in one.
There's $1 million package, $1.5 million package, and a $2 million package.
Yeah.
Let us choose the package.
Yeah, okay, yeah, do that. Say, okay, $1 million would get us this, $1.5 million would get us this, and $2 million would get us this.
So the $1 million would be the most important.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can do that.
Oh.
It's going to take me a little bit of time. I got a few selected, but I need to, you know, look at some others.
Well,
I mean, when are we thinking? I mean, 2018?
2018, you're not gonna get nothing going this year. I mean,
But we could start. We could start doing some
we could get a lot of
selection.
groundwork done, and then
Yeah.
18 actually start getting a company in to do them.
I wouldn't say, well, we're not going to look at this until 18. We want to start looking at
Oh,
it
we
now.
want to look at it now,
Yeah.
but I mean, for actual construction, well, I don't know.
I'd like to see it all organized and decided before the end of the year.
I do
Most-
believe we could have it
Yeah.
done by the end of the year. I mean, and with this, I mean, say what we're saying, every 3 years, so a 9-year, I could look out and do a 9-year bridge plan. I mean, so the first 3 years we'll do this with maybe 2 different options.
But you're talking about weeks, not months, right? Put this together.
Oh, yeah, this, well, the 9-year plan might take a little. I mean,
No, I mean,
once I have all the information, I'll be like, okay, well, these 3 can go.
If you
here,
think
these
that-
10 can go here.
If you think that every 3 years and in a 10-year deal, that might get us too many. You could, you know, if you bump it out to 4 every 4 years, then you would only have 2 at any one
We
time.
can never have too many bridges.
No, I meant handling the
that's the only-
payments and
that's the
everything
only-
Well,
else.
the payment thing is what would be my biggest concern.
Well,
That's where I'm
so-
saying that we would never have any 1 year where we have 3 payments due at one time if we bumped it out to 4.
That's why I would like to shorten that 10 years to 4 or 5 years, because then you wouldn't have so much out there.
Well-
Give us analysis of what the mill will cost us.
Yeah.
And if you already were spending the money every year anyway, I mean, if you're spending $250,000 on every project,
We're not spending
that's
that
2
much.
mils.
Well, I mean, like, this year, we don't have any large bridge project planned.
Yeah.
2019 is our next one, which we pay 20% of what the state's deal is, so it's usually under 100,000 for us, so. Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice.
I'd
if
say
budget was every year.
probably 100 to 150 is what we've been spending a year since I've been on.
It's close to around, it just depends
Well,
on what the
150 is a
project
mil.
Yeah.
So,
Give or take a little bit.
Okay, well, we'll get started on
Jody
that.
Scott, the date opening.
Yeah, I talked to him by phone.
I guess I can give you an update on that bridge so you all know. They are, I guess, progress kind of a little slower. They've had some issues with some companies coming in to do the asphalt work and everything else. So Sherman Road should still be open by this Friday. The reason it's not open is because there's no guardrail along the bridge structure. They have the post in, but for safety issues, they can't open that roadway back up because the Jersey barriers are gone. And that was basically keep from people going off the road without the guardrail there. And in order to do the work they're doing now, they had to pull those barriers. That's why the closure's there. But they should have guardrail up by Thursday, if not Friday. They should be open by the weekend. As you know, we're hoping the plans go as they say. The bridge opening is all going to depend on whether they get concrete. We did make a change from asphalt to a concrete approach, just due to the fact that the asphalt company that was going to come in is 2 to 3 weeks out. They can hopefully have it poured by the end of next week, 7 days of cure time, then it should be open. So we're just kind of waiting.
Have you been personally hauling rock down there in the county truck?
The county is responsible for the rock on.
I know, but you personally drive
yes,
the truck
I was
yourself?
personally driving the truck.
What's the reasoning for that?
Because my guys are all doing asphalt.
I see, okay.
I don't have enough guys to do all the work we have, so
Okay.
I have to jump in and go. So,
Okay. I figured that.
So
I
you'll
just-
see me out there doing all sorts of work.
Mhm.
This morning I was out doing all sorts. I'll be mowing roads. I mean, whatever it takes to keep things going. If I had another 5 guys, it'd be great, but we're never going to get that. So it'd be nice, but when we're in asphalt, that's all we got. And when we lose our summer help, we have to close the road down to asphalt. So.
Okay.
What's this week on Ottawa, next week, where are we at on?
I'm hoping within 2 weeks it's done.
2.
We're back fixing the damaged areas and we're out of there. And then we're gonna go ahead and swap down to River Road, get it chip sealed for the city. And then I didn't want to switch, but we're gonna have to go back to asphalt, get the Effingham streets done that we had promised them. We got the EMS site that we're gonna try to get done still. I told Wes I don't know if it's gonna happen. We will do our best.
The weather's gonna catch you.
So
Asphalt
if we
parking
can-
lot.
Yeah, I look for an early fall, where the weather is.
So I mean, we can still put asphalt down. You know, you can technically still do it till it's 32 degrees out. I don't want to, but it's possible. It's hard to do it when you're coming from Leavenworth to Atchison with asphalt. It gets too cold, it doesn't lay down right. So I told Wes, you know, if he has that money left over, if there's any chance he can roll it to next year. Next year we don't have near the big project. We're not going to try to take on anything that big anymore. So
I like to see about a 3-day project, make sure it gets done this year, is demolishing the county lake facility.
oh, that'll happen through the winter. If there's a snowy day or something after we push snow and there's nothing else going on, that'll be that day. We're not going to take that on unless we have a bad weather day.
Yeah.
So.
There's going to have to be some patching done on that road south of Everest. That's breaking up. So the paved road, yeah,
Or
Be-
Douglas,
it'd be Edwards, wouldn't
Douglas to Edwards, somewhere in there. Yes, we have a lot of a lot of soft spots coming through. I don't know if it's all the rain we got this year. But I've noticed all those chip seal roads we did last year. All those soft spots are coming up through. So I'm not sure what's going on because usually we catch all those. They last for 3 or 4 years. Those are not holding.
it? There was a
So-
couple areas, but for the most part, the road was okay. But then
Correct.
there's just
And
you have
I
to
think
patch
you're
it.
gonna find those soft spots. I mean, we have all these heavy trucks on them. They're gonna come out. I mean, it's not what you want to see, but you just deal with it. And they're all over the county. So
I just happened to be on that road yesterday. Just noted it. So
Did you get with Colin Shealy about what they was wanting?
good.
Okay. Okay, I think I told you, maybe I didn't. I went down and looked at the road that Walnut Township was complaining, and I would suggest that you rip that little bit of blacktop rock that turned over to him and go down there and put a closed sign on the old highway where it takes and goes south. He had mentioned something about some farmers using it. There's not a person that uses that road.
Well,
That's lawless.
technically it wouldn't be up to. That's a township road after it gets off the asphalt, correct?
Yeah, but
So-
I'm talking about where he's saying it's county where it goes due south. It
Well,
comes- that would be
we
our.
gotta do a road closure
resolution.
resolution.
Well, that's what needs to be done.
petition.
That's what needs.
The petition you have to do, or just a notice on road closure.
You have to have a public hearing, yeah,
Public
you have to have a
hearing,
petition and.
So I mean,
You have
my
to pay
thing
damages
is,
if
I'm gonna
anything.
take a grader down there, I'm gonna rip up all the asphalt. We're gonna
There's not much
sheet
as
foot it back
spot.
in there and rock it, blade it, and call it done, so.
Yep. That's the east and west road, but where I'm talking about is the north and south one. I wouldn't do nothing to that. I'd close it.
Well, if it's something we can close, yes. Yeah.
You got Lawless that's got that service, but he comes in from the south there, maybe, I don't know, 150 feet. And then from there, all the way back to the other road. There's nobody uses that road.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. So. And then Corpsines Road, 218, where the feedlot's at.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, that road.
That's what I'm talking about. That needs to be rocked, turned over to the township, and then when you go down there, the old highway goes south, we need to close that.
Well, is there anything to turning the road over to the township? We just couldn't declare it as a township road, would we? Wouldn't we have to have the same procedure on that to make it a township road? If currently it's being maintained by the county, I don't know if we can just say, all right, township, it's yours.
Well,
That'd be something I need to get involved with, but it'd just be like us taking over a township road, probably the same thing. Just making agreements, and which I don't see why he wouldn't maintain a gravel portion. That's another couple.
he did tell me that he wasn't gonna maintain that bridge approach.
Which one?
On that last culvert we built, bridge culvert, whatever you wanna call it.
This 266 one? It's his responsibility to maintain the rock root off of it.
All I know is what I'm telling you, what he told me.
Okay, well, I mean, and we have the option, if we wanted hard surface over that structure, we can. It wouldn't be a hard time to do, we just do a chip seal and,
Well, I think that'd be spending the money now, because we had a solid surface and we put dirt on it, rock, then why would you want a hard surface it now?
well, that's just the way it was designed. I mean, if we wanted to raise it to make it the concrete structure, we've been paying a lot more money. So that's the reason it was designed like that. I did talk to the engineer on that. But
He asked about selling the dirt, hopefully the county got paid, and I said, yeah, I was thinking you said $3 a ton, but there was no figure mentioned.
Yard.
They're
Or three.
figured by the truckload or
whatever.
by the yardage. They're still hauling dirt, so there is.
And
a
I
new
think
foreman
that's
down there.
I think that was basically his neighbor they offered to buy some dirt, and then we sold them dirt, and that's where the hard feelings may come in.
The neighbor offered them to sell, and then he offered, basically he had a minimal amount to haul, and they said, no, we don't want to pay that because we may not need that much. So they turned them down, and then, they were asking if anybody else had dirt. I said, well, the county owns this property here. I would like to remove this whole bank side, so,
Do you remember what it was, the price per yard?
For us, I
Yeah.
believe it was $3.
That's what I was thinking, $3. I didn't remember.
The engineer down there has it all, and they're tracking it as they
Jody made mention that someone priced, or Marlette's, what they get for their dirt after by Baker's, and I don't know where. He never come up with no figure, but he just wanted to make sure that we was getting paid.
Yeah, we're getting paid for it. I mean, there wasn't a lot of dirt they're hauling out of there. It's not worth fighting that long to make them wait another week to haul dirt in there, so. It's
Yeah.
actually doing us a favor.
Let's get it-
My
let's-
goal is to get that line of sight through that corner a lot
Get
further out.
it wrapped up. Get it
So,
wrapped up.
but yeah, there is some delay. They did change foremans down there again. Their foreman that's been there the whole project quit on them. So.
He made mention that they kicked the engineer out of the motel because of the eclipse, and he was down there and witnessed them all laughing. Well, we got 4 days, we don't have to work, or something to that effect. But
I know they took they're on their working days still. They're not past their working days.
what was that completion date? 21st of September, wasn't it? Eric thought it was the 12th.
No, I
Well,
said
first of
27th.
See, there's
the
no
27th?
there is
12th.
no actual completion date. They're working days. If there's a rain day, it's not considered, if it's too much work determined by the engineer, it's not.
You also said that it was, when we had the change order, it went to 120 instead of 100 days.
Correct. The amount of days went up on that change order, so that was that. So they're still on schedule. I believe there's 30-some working days left, so that's a couple more weeks out. So into September, 1st of October sometime they got completed. So.
Okay.
Anything else?
In your opinion, of course, you're probably going to say double. Where would you feel comfortable as far as bonding and your
Budget.
budget? How much it's going to take out of your budget every year to make that bonding payment? Where would you feel comfortable at? I like,
So I guess, look back, the payment on a 2-year, 10-year, am I reading this right? It'd be like the 214 is roughly what he's thinking. Would be my yearly payment. Is that what he, I think honestly we could swing that.
That's $1.5 million.
I do think we'd be able to go with that. It just really depends on, say we have some roads that are just completely falling apart and we have to do some road work.
So you do the first one 15, the next one 10. I mean,
I think I've told you this before. One of my goals was to get on here was number one, get the equipment up in good shape, and we're just about there. We get a facility, then we could take that money and really concentrate on the bridges and the roads because we're not going to need as much. Our facility should be a 50-year. Our machinery 4 or 5 years. So the money that we've been spending on machinery, we should be able to pay off bonds or to do more hard surface roads or build more bridges.
Because the way the roads are looking now, they honestly need completely rehab. We need companies completely come in, redo base work, everything. I mean, they've been bandaged for so long. Something really needs to be done because we can't keep up with the damages on them.
Well, I think if nothing else we learn on Ottawa Road, we need to core drill and we need to make sure that we get the base before we put another Band-Aid on top of the Band-Aid.
Yeah. And with what we've dug out, I mean, the dirt underneath is very well compacted. It's just between those layers, there's those springs that are popping out that we're finding. So, and a lot of our roads have a lot of springs in them. I mean, Cheyenne Road's one of them. That road we patched last year, it's already falling apart. So we run into a lot of that. That's what I'm saying. We need to completely rehab a lot of these and put some drainage in them and tile them.
Commissioner Knoll went out and looked at the Ottawa Road where the road comes off and the drainage problems. And was you wanting to talk about that or about the water drainage, how they got it all running down on the highway now? Or
Oh, on there, right next to across from Larry Garrison's there, where that plant is there, the electrical plant or substation.
I've talked with Larry on that one. We're gonna try to build, I guess, a little bit of a berm in his yard to help direct that water. I did go out there during one of the big rains, and you could tell everything from there. I mean, nothing off the plant was actually draining. It was just everything off their drive and off the road was coming down his way.
Well, I wondered, a lot of that isn't drive. I don't know why they sloped that whole bank towards the road. It's not just the drive, and they rocked it. It's from their fence, and
Correct.
there's no gate there. I mean, why did they slope that whole big area towards our road and drain? Because
Well, they put a culvert all the way in there, so everything from that, I mean, it's gonna drain to the road. That's the reason for culverts. Usually you don't get that much water off of it. But they are getting quite a bit.
I don't understand why I guess they put a culvert in where there wasn't a drive.
They needed to extend. I don't know the reasoning. I know they need to extend. I don't know if it was something they just need to get around to the other side of the fence to expand that substation. But really, I mean, where I saw the water issues coming from was actually down the road, or up the road further from the south coming in. A lot of that was draining off, coming back across the road, which hopefully the majority of that's solved by now. The other thing, I mean,
Yeah, he had kind of a double whammy. He had water kind of coming from the power plant and from the southwest coming around there.
the issue with that is that whole curve drains to him. I can't solve how. I mean, I can't fix that the shop sits lower than the road. Or, I mean, we can try, but we're going to try to build a berm that he can still mow down the side of his yard to help direct some of that water to his culvert. I can't fix I mean, we can do all we can, but we can't.
Some of that, would that be the ridge along the edge of the road from south of his property, up there to where the water can actually drain and get off of the road?
Yeah,
I mean,
most of that should be solved. I mean, we raised the road, we've shaved the shoulders. A lot of it's still
That's what
solved.
I'm-
There's still some issues that need to be fixed. We're gonna have to rip out that guard, or I guess you'd call it a guardrail fence, with the wood piling and the wire cable. If we pull that out, we can reditch the other side. Hopefully, a lot of that water that's coming down that road will eventually fall off to the east, and it won't come across to the west of his area, and that'll that'll help a lot too.
Okay,
But there's a lot of factors coming in there to this.
right. I realize there's a lot of water coming through there.
Do you notify the guy with the ties situation? The ties along the road?
On south of that, where the railroad ties that were in the driveway,
No, but I have a letter drafted for him. I
Okay.
need to talk with him about it, but we haven't done that yet.
okay?
Okay.
Anything more? Thanks,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Did you get your mower ordered?
Yes, it's ordered. They actually didn't have any in any of their facilities. She said a few weeks and hopefully they'll have it.
Pat, do you have any county councilor updates?
I have not heard anything back from AT&T. I suspect that the attorney I was working with was on vacation last week because I emailed him a couple times. I do have a proposed contract ready on abstracting for the tax sale. Mr. Ferris mentioned to me that they're ready to go. They're excited to get going. And I think we're to the point where we can do that. There are 300 and some properties that might be eligible, and we've taken some of those out of, at least preliminarily, turning them over because there's some research that we're trying to do. That is, we took out the properties that only owe for a single year, and that year is more than trying to look at historically whether or not they should be in. And we'll have those looked at before the sale's filed, but I'm not sending those over right away. And then also the churches that just had the 1 year, the solid waste fee, that sort of thing. There were some properties that I think are that we had identified that were in a prior tax sale. Just haven't had time to look at them to see if what's in our system is accurate or not. What I have prepared, I think what I had before was 150 reports we were expecting, and I've bumped that up to 200 because I think that's more accurate to what we're actually going to need. That's a $24,000 expenditure for the abstracting. But as I understand the mission, that's what we want to do, is get all the properties that are eligible for the sale on the sale.
I've heard pro and con. I heard it's about time that you get aggressive and get the taxes. And I also heard, when I hear about the tax sale, it was just last week. They don't think it's publicly known enough. We're not getting it out to the public as we should.
Gosh, it was on the Globe how many times? I don't know how much more you
I'm
can.
just telling you what I was told.
Well, I get the same thing. I get some people telling me, "Oh my gosh, this is
You'd
a
be
horrible
surprised
time
what
if you would have
the
waited one
circulation
more
of
year,"
law.
and then I get the opposite, that, "Oh, I wish you would have done this a year ago."
Circulation of the globe
Most
is
of the
getting.
people I've talked to think we should be doing this on an annual basis.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
And that's where we're-
It'd be consistent.
We're getting there now. We haven't been, but we're gradually getting there.
My question is, have you separated commercial from vacant
Uh,
on the sale versus what they have to pay?
well, we've identified both, but I don't have them.
A commercial has to have less, explain that to me again, commercial.
One fewer year of delinquencies.
Okay.
Right. Yes, but they're identified
Okay.
in the sale now. I didn't separate them on the
You don't have to
spreadsheet.
separate,
but
as long as they're
it would be-
identified. Because they can't go as long.
Right, right.
Okay, who done the abstracting on the last tax sale though? Did we have this expense or?
Yes, it was split. Half of it was done by Keith Wilson and half was done by Commerce. Commerce
Okay.
is no longer
Okay.
in business. This $120 per tract, that is, I think it was, I shouldn't say because it's on camera and I don't, I know that it's cheaper than what Brown County was paying when they bid theirs out.
Do we need to increase the minimum from the $26 to justify more of the cost?
That's a two-edged sword because if you have them at $100 or something, you may not get somebody buying it. And that's completely up to you all.
I'd probably leave it. Just some of those, just nice, just to have somebody willing to pay the minimum just to get it back on the tax roll and get it maintained. Yeah, in a way it's too cheap, but I think you'll get more properties that won't sell if you raise it too much. So, do we have something ready to go?
Well, it's a contract, two of them. If you would, I think I gave you a draft of those several weeks ago. And then they would be delivered to Mr. Ferris when we have the list finalized. But
These
I
are the
expect
same
that
thing,
this
only
week.
one's to O'Keefe Wilson and one's to,
No, those are both the same, it's so that we would get an original back and they would have an original to keep. So there's two originals to be executed.
okay.
So we need to vote on this now, or do we?
That's up to you. If you need time to think about it, there's no real rush. It's just he mentioned it to me that they're ready to go.
What do you think, guys?
Looks straightforward to me.
I think so.
Do I hear a motion to approve the contracts for the contracting for tax sale?
I so move, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Same sign. Pass 3-0. And do we have
One spot on the second page.
and it's just by me only.
Who gets them, you or Michelle?
Michelle, do you need to see these or anything?
We're gonna have an original of our own, right?
That's an original.
But we will,
It's,
Yes.
but you're gonna take them all to Ferris.
I need to take both of them. Yeah.
okay, I didn't know if Michelle needed to see anything for minutes. I think I skipped over any old or unfinished business. Was you over with this? Do you have anything else on updates?
No.
Anybody need an executive session for anything? Do I hear any other business needs to be taken care of? If not, do I hear a motion to adjourn at 3:08?
I so move, Mr. Chairman.
Second it.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Pass 3-0. We are now adjourned. Okay.
You know what, Mitch?